Welcome to Joa Fitness Health Wellness Video Podcast, a space to ignite your day through positive conversations. We bring people that have created excellence in their life, sharing high vibration in their reawakening path.
Hi, good morning, everybody. Happy Friday to everybody that is listening to this or watching it on YouTube. My name is Joa Rivas. I am a yoga and Pilates teacher since 2010, and I'm bringing this podcast since 2018. So it's been about almost 4 years. And it started from my own inspiration by so many professionals that have helped me to improve my posture. I had scoliosis when I was 15 years old, and I had chronic back pain. That's how I was diagnosed, because I just could not sleep or live my life as a 15 years old teenager. After 10 years of exercising, doing yoga, Pilates, and therapies of all types, you can imagine how many I did, my back got better and stronger. And now that I'm 36, I'm living a life full of healthy, quality body that is giving me so much now to share with you. And today we have a great new guest. I'm very excited. We've been trying to talk since probably summer. So now we are entering almost winter and just started. So I'm very blessed and grateful to have Jeanice. How are you, Jeanice?
I'm doing well. Thank you. I'm so happy to be here. And I'm so happy, Joa, for your persistence. I love it.
That's true.
And I love hearing your story too.
Thank you. I actually, when you say persistence, I usually tell everybody that gets the Posture School program that I designed. There are two keys for any goal that you set in your mind is persistence, which I call consistency, actually, because persistence is more like you're going against it. Consistency is more like you're just like flowing with the habits. And the other one is having patience, because changes are not going to happen from one day to another. So having patience through the process, it will be also important. Consistency is also important because even though I healed my back when I was 25, and now that I'm 36 and all the pandemic has been affecting us, and I'm working more from home, I can tell you that my back has been hurting me again. It's like, oh no, I'm coming back to my previous phase. So then it's good to reassess our body and to understand that it's never an end goal. It's always just a big goal, and we can never stop. So keep the consistency or persistency, how Dr. Jeanice Mitchell. So Jeanice Mitchell, she is a woman that is dedicated to educate people, which is very important. And her passion comes from her own knowledge and her own journey. So tell us a little bit more about you, Jeanice Mitchell.
Yes. So I'm a pelvic health physical therapist. In 95, I graduated from PT school. And so, I was a young physical therapist, healthy, active. And then I had my first baby in 1999. And at that point if even now, there's still a lot of people that don't know about pelvic floor physical therapy, but 25 years ago or 21, whatever we are, it was much less. And so I had my own baby and I had some pelvic health dysfunction myself. And so I saw a little ad for a pelvic floor class in my PT journal. And so I went there really to get help for myself. Like, I didn't want to see vaginas or do anything with rectums. Like, that was not in my professional plan. But I went to that class and it was just a life-changing class. That's what I can say. Like, amazing to understand how our bodies work and the role of the pelvic floor muscles and how profoundly it can impact our quality of life, our confidence, our activity level. So that really started my journey personally and professionally. And so since that class in 2000, this has been my passion and it's been my profession as well. So I've been privileged to work with a lot of people, countless people one-on-one. And then in 2018, I started my PFM.
Exactly. So I actually wanted to also acknowledge all this passion for over 20 years. And it's important because this became your life pretty much. You do have now a channel that is really developed, and I love how versatile you are with all these videos, very, very short videos, or very educational videos. And your channel is called My PFM. So could you tell us a little bit about what my PFM is?
Yes. So on Instagram, it's so my PFM. We actually have several accounts. So my PFM is the multilingual one. So we have over 30 different languages as well. So my PFM is a smaller channel and it has a lot of languages. My pelvic floor muscles is what my PFM stands for. And so on Instagram and on YouTube, the whole account is called My Pelvic Floor Muscles. Go there and you'll find a lot of educational content for all kinds of things pelvic health related. And so that's really I wake up thinking about the pelvic floor and I go to sleep thinking about the pelvic floor. When you say that it's my life, it probably really is.
Yeah.
My children, I have a 15-year-old, a 19-year-old, and a 21-year-old, and they're like, oh, they're almost pelvic floor experts themselves now.
So you have 3 kids, you're a physical therapist, and you're definitely putting all this amazing information out there. And I wanted to today, actually, now that we know a little bit about you more, I wanted to talk about pelvic floor. And I actually had before another pelvic floor physiotherapist, probably 2 years ago. Her name is Naf Grebal, and she offers virtual consultations and also in person. I met her when I was doing my doula training.
Oh, good.
And I also was fascinated about how pelvic floor could be an specialization only for physiotherapy. And it's so important for all women, even men. Sometimes they also need to reassess their core muscles as well.
Yes, and children too, like with bedwetting. I mean, there's a lot of issues that happen with children too.
Exactly. And for those people that actually are not familiar with the pelvic floor, if you can actually show us, I know you have your props with you. Okay, thank you so much.
Yes, I'm a very visual learner. So pretend like your pelvis. So this is a female body pelvis. So pretend like your pelvis is kind of like a bowl. Okay, so the bones are the outside of the bowl. This is the front, and then this is the back. That's the tailbone and the spine. And then at the bottom of the bowl are your muscles, okay? So they attach here at the pubic bone, they stretch all the way back to the tailbone, and they go side to side. So literally, they're named very appropriately, pelvic floor muscles. So that bowl, they're the bottom of that bowl. And so you have organs that sit on those muscles. And so that floor, if that floor isn't doing a good job holding up those organs, then what can happen to those organs? They can start to fall, right?
The
so
prolapse.
That's just one, yes, that's called pelvic organ prolapse. So that's just one of the dysfunctions that can happen with the pelvic floor. But that's a overall summary. A lot of times people think that it's just one little Kegel muscle down there, but we actually have 17 pelvic floor muscles, and they do different things. So that's a basic overview of the pelvic floor muscles.
Yes, I totally like the idea that we are using this prop to show the internal physiology of our body. So important to see how it is, because sometimes we're kind of, I think the first time that we have so much clarity about how it looks. For everybody, sorry,
go ahead.
I pulled my one of my inner thighs when I was doing one of my shows. I was just under a lot of stress, and I got a tear on my inner thigh, and my core muscle all my core muscles were off. Even though it was my inner thigh, my core muscles were completely off. So this one actually can affect athletes, dancers, hockey players. Those people that tend to do exercises where they open their legs wider. They tend to overstretch these muscles that will actually affect the entire spine.
Yes. Good. I just wanted to briefly go over a little bit more of the anatomy here. So this is the anus. So that's where poop would come out. That's the vaginal opening. Then you have a little opening there for the urethra, and then you open it up. And so then you can see the rectum, that's the uterus and the vaginal canal, and then the bladder and the urethral canal. So I think that's basically these muscles control those 3 canals as well. And so they, if they're not doing the right thing at the right time, you can have leakage, you can have pain, you can have difficulty urinating, you can have constipation. So those are just some of the other dysfunctions that you might see with the pelvic floor.
Okay, so those are all topics that we can go deeper on the next episode.
I know.
Yeah.
We could do it. We could do an episode probably for each one of those.
Even deeper into each one, because I know it's so much. I think one of the questions that we've been asking a lot is related to the prolapse.
Yes.
And prolapse can affect only men, or I mean woman and men, or only women?
So pelvic organ prolapse, which is basically, so only female bodies, only people with vaginal canals can have pelvic organ prolapse, but you can have a rectal prolapse. I'll talk about that in just a minute. I actually have a much better, I wasn't totally prepared. So talk for just a minute. I'm going to go get a different diagram for the prolapse to be able to show it a little clearer. Okay. So
okay. Yes, no worries. So yes, here in Toronto is beautiful, and it's a sunshine, and it's been very strange because we are actually in the beginning of winter, pretty much very soon. And we're still having amazing days. You see my face is very shining with this sunshine. It's about just the middle of November, and we are still getting a lot of sunshine. It's unbelievable. She's here. She's back. Okay, Jeanice.
Yes. Okay.
Okay.
So here is the side view. So I think it's a little bit easier to see it here. So that's the pubic bone, and then that's the tailbone. There's the rectum, that's the uterus and the vaginal canal, and the bladder and the urethral canal. What you really want to look at is this vaginal canal here. So you see this is the front wall and this is the back wall, and see how it's nice and tall, okay? And the organs are up. Now look at this image where that vaginal canal is starting to collapse. And you can see that the bladder is starting to fall into the vaginal canal. The rectum is starting to fall into the vaginal canal. Because you can have different kinds of prolapse. You can have the bladder to prolapse.
Okay. Yes.
You can have the uterus, or you can have the rectum that drops into the vaginal canal. So it's literally that vaginal canal that's starting to collapse, and the organs kind of fall behind it. Mm-hmm. Now there is a different kind, and I think sometimes people say rectal prolapse when when they say it, they're talking about the rectum coming into the vagina, but that's wrong. That's wrong. It's the wrong words. Okay. So a rectal prolapse would be actually where the rectum itself starts to come out of the rectum. So like where that rectal canal kind of collapses. And so if you were looking at the actual anus, you would see something coming out of the anus.
Almost that could like actually be affecting the man.
Yeah, so that's what could affect the men. It's very rare, so it's not talked about very much because it's very uncommon. It's not a common thing. Like with the pelvic organ prolapse, 1 of 2 people that have a vaginal delivery will have some kind of prolapse. So it's very, very common, but there's a lot of people that may not have symptoms. So just because they have prolapse doesn't mean it has to affect their life. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, I'm asking because sometimes people come to me with that, and it's important to now explain that it actually can happen, but it's not a common thing. So basically, that's great. Yeah. Now, one more thing before we actually finish our conversation today, because I only wanted to introduce you and perhaps bring some curiosity for people to bring some questions to us, and also to see your channel, because your channel, it has so many other topics that we have been actually very, very curious. So I'm very excited to bring these topics, especially anything related to woman before, during, and after pregnancies. I think that's something that people want to hear. Before we go, I wanted to see if you wanted to share a little bit of the exercises for strengthening those muscles so we don't get any type of prolapse, maybe 2 movements that you could suggest in an easy way.
Mm-hmm. So I think something that's really important with the pelvic floor muscles is that a lot of times people think they're activating their pelvic floor, but they're actually straining. Okay. So when you squeeze your pelvic floor muscles, the openings should close and lift. And so the first exercise, oh, and I think we preface all of this by saying this isn't medical advice. It doesn't replace evaluation by a healthcare provider. This is general information to increase awareness, right?
Yes.
So get a mirror and go into the bathtub. So you're in the bathtub, separate your legs, okay? So we're separate. And of course, in the bathtub, you don't have clothes on, right? So we're looking at the anus and grab that mirror. And I want you to actually look at the anus and practice in that position. So when you squeeze, does the anus pull up and in? And if that's the case, that's good. But sometimes when people squeeze, it pushes out. And so that's the opposite of what we want to have happen when you're squeezing. So in the bathtub, practice squeezing and then practice releasing. Practice squeezing, practice releasing. And so that would be where I would start with most people, is getting that connection with their pelvic floor muscles, because you can do squats, you can do bridges, you can do planks, you can do all kinds of things. But if you're, like you were saying, if your core and those inner muscles aren't turning on and they're not activated, then you're not getting the full benefit out of that exercise. So sometimes we have to kind of back up, isolate, focus on training, and then integrate into activity. And so that, I think, is one of the starting foundation pieces. So that's exercise number one. And then exercise number two is a little tricky, but I think it's also really important. So if you've ever heard people say, oh, I leak when I exercise, but Kegels don't work for me. I've tried Kegels and they don't work for me. Have you ever heard that?
Yes, yeah. I hear that a lot, especially because I teach Pilates and we try to go through the Kegels, but not everybody feels the Kegels the same way.
Yeah, not everybody, and they may not be doing them correctly either. Okay, so like we just talked about, there's multiple muscles, right? So we just talked about a way for us to activate the muscles around the anus, right? So with that mirror in the bathtub, you're practicing squeezing, practicing releasing, and that is technically Kegel, right? You're squeezing, releasing, squeezing, releasing. But what if you only stop there and you're only working on this external anal sphincter muscle and you're not actually working on the muscles that surround the urethra, right? That doesn't help, because you might have a really good, strong external anal sphincter muscle, but your muscles that are around that bladder outlet aren't activating. So the second piece for people that are leaking would be to focus on squeezing the front and the back. And you can actually practice squeeze front, squeeze back, squeeze front, squeeze back, and then of course releasing both too. What I find helpful, I'm gonna move my camera down just a little bit. So when we're working on squeezing the front part, I think it's helpful to kind of, so instead of doing like this kind of posture, I like to do more of an anterior pelvic tilt. So we're tilting that pelvis anterior, and you're literally thinking about squeezing the front part, almost like your clitoris, okay? So you're squeezing that front part, and then if you want to tilt back, then squeeze the back part. Tilt forward, squeeze the front part. Tilt back, squeeze the back part. So you're getting that discrimination between the different parts of the muscle, which I think is really overlooked, because again, a lot of people think it's just one Kegel muscle, and when you squeeze, it's an equal squeeze, but many times it's not. Many times it's not a correct squeeze, and many times it's not an equal squeeze. So that's where I would start. Okay,
well, for the Kegels, I usually call the Kegels, and I think we talked about this before with Dr. Nagrebal, or also another physiotherapist in the city here in Toronto. We talk about the elevator, very similar. So you squeeze, but you also elevate it. So you feel that you are elevated, and you work with the breath, right? So it's very important when you do this movement, especially at the beginning, to become aware, just really breathe and in a longer way, so you can actually concentrate your energy into that specific area, which is a very powerful area that we have to get in touch and be aware of it. And I know for Jeanice Mitchell, it's so easy to talk about this because that's what she does every day. But for many of us, you may feel strange. But I think the more you get to practice this, the easier for you to detect when something is not actually working properly, especially if you are a mother. It's important not to ignore these type of exercises that you can actually do when you're driving. Sometimes you think driving will be a good time, or maybe it's maybe better to be focused, because they say like when you are on the stop
at the stoplight. I think if you get good and you know you're doing it right, I don't have any problems with that, as long as you're squeezing and releasing and you're doing it correctly. So it's not wrong.
Well, thank you so much. Jeanice Mitchell is in what city are you, by the way?
I live in two places. So I live in Texas and Georgia. So Texas, I'm about an hour north of Austin, and Georgia, I'm about an hour north of Atlanta.
Okay, beautiful. So you are in Austin, Texas, and in Georgia, both places, but you also offer work online, virtual support.
Yes. So I have a platform called pelvicflix.com. So it's kind of like Netflix for the pelvic floor. So we have all kinds of videos and workouts and a lot of virtual options there. So we offer a 14-day free trial, and every Wednesday I'm doing live workouts with the pelvic floor. So if anybody wants to come join, I'd love to have you.
Oh, wow. That's so awesome. It sounds like you are definitely putting so many channels to connect with you. So I'm looking forward to talk to you again. Perhaps next week we can have another talk and we'll go deeper into the pelvic floor muscles. Thank you so much, and have a beautiful,
thank you for the opportunity.
Beautiful day.
Okay, you too. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
We invite you to subscribe to this channel and share with your community. Please leave comments below, and if you like the episode, click the like button. Have a beautiful day.